Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today. Hello, football fans! Welcome to the Extra Point with Ryan Justice.
Round 1 of the playoffs is in the books, and ladies and gentlemen, we are one step closer to the Super Bowl. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extra Point. It is the one and only Ryan Justice, if I could talk tonight. It is Ryan Justice, and trust me, we have a huge week in the playoffs to cover. But again, guys, before we get started, want to say, hey, like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit that notification button. Go like us on Twitch. Go like us on YouTube. Go like us on Facebook. Keep up to date with everything going on with the Extra Point. And with that, I'll bring in my co-host for tonight, the one and only Andrew Martinez. Andy, how's it going, sir?
Good, man. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Probably a couple years taken off of my life from all the yelling and screaming this weekend, but doing pretty good. Doing pretty good, man. I mean, did you enjoy this weekend in the playoffs?
Man, it was, some games were more lopsided than I expected, and then, we had some close games too. So I think it was a good game, a good week for the wild card games. You never know what's going to happen in these kind of games, and I think some good solid football that leads into the divisional round this week.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the divisional round is the hardest round in the playoffs. This is where you really kind of separate the teams who are good, who are, okay, they're above average teams from the teams that, okay, legit, you could say have a chance, and there's actually some weight behind that. But we'll go ahead and get right into hot topics, guys. And of course, one of the big things, we actually had a coaching hire this week. Mike Vrabel returns to New England, not as a player, but as a coach. He is hired as New England's head coach after the departure of Gerard Mayo, returning to head coaching after leaving Tennessee. And Mike Vrabel, this was the perfect fit. Like, this kind of seemed like the most obvious move in the coaching cycle. And I think Mike Vrabel embodies more of what you're wanting to see out of the New England Patriots. And he's not stepping into a bad situation either.
Yeah, I think of all the openings that we had in the league and the coaching spots, this one was pretty much. We talked about it last week. This one was pretty much cinched up. We were pretty confident that Mike Vrabel was going to meet with the Crafts and get this signed. And yeah, I think he does. I think he really envelops the whole what they want the Patriot way to be. Obviously, he had success, there in Tennessee at times, and I think he's going to be able to, bring that in and bring that into New England and really show them how to, take it maybe to that next level in this young team.
Yeah, he got to an AFC championship with the Titans. He got a number 1 seed with the Titans. And I think he embodies more of the continuation of what Bill Belichick was. Maybe not necessarily as with the football IQ. He can definitely bring it defensively, but I think he's a little bit better in not wanting to kind of have control over everything. Although they did kind of say the GM of the team is going to answer to him. And I don't think he steps into a bad situation. They got a good young quarterback in Drake May who, I mean, he had his moments, but this was a bad roster. This was not a great roster that he had. Decent defense, but a lot of cap space, a lot of ways to build, a lot of promise on the team that you aren't getting in places like Vegas or the Jets, where everything is just kind of in disarray. To me, I had this ranked as probably the number 2 spot to land for somebody because they're going to have a lot of cap space in the off season. And again, they've got a quarterback who's young and who shows some promise. And Vrabel knows what to do with it. And you give Vrabel a good running back, maybe not necessarily a freak like Derrick Henry, but you bring in a good running back to Mike Vrabel, and he can do something with it. He can tailor that offense to be a strong, physical, tough-minded defense that is not going to bend. And I really think that he's gonna have success. It may not show right off the bat in New England, but I think they're definitely going to start trending up next year.
Yeah, I think with the coaching experience that he has, with that, what he's shown that he can do, I think he'll definitely, again, if it doesn't happen in a year, give him a couple, and he'll really show why he is going to be able to take over that spot there in New England.
Well, we filled one coaching spot and then we vacated one coaching spot. We said this last week that it's probably pretty safe to say that by the time we do the show again, we are going to be looking at Dallas without a head coach, and not 12 hours after Dallas announced that they were parting ways with Mike McCarthy, there was a phone call in to Deion Sanders, and there wasn't necessarily a no.
Yeah, I think, I mean, who knows with Jerry Jones and what he wants to do, who he wants to bring in. Obviously Deion has had the success at Colorado, and with his sons coming in the draft and being able to maybe trade up for picks and get up, and who knows what could happen, or is Jerry just doing it for the show? And because again, the more you get to talk about the Cowboys, the better off he is. And Deion's always going to do that, whether they're winning, losing. You're going to be paying attention to him. He's going to be talking. He's going to keep you engaged through the off season, through the down times, through the good times. So I think if he does, that would definitely really change some things. I think I think he's, showing that he can have the success at Colorado, so we'll see if he stays there. But yeah, I mean, you've seen all sorts of names, be thrown around, and no one really knows. I think out of all the spots, I think the Cowboys spot is going to be the most unpredictable when it comes to who may actually get that job.
Although, Deion, of course, is the one that a lot of people are talking about, and I mean, the NFL is way different than college. But Deion's a guy that knows what the NFL is. Although I think it would be more for spectacle than it would be for actually doing something that will bring you closer to a championship, getting back to what the Cowboys were. And that's right up Jerry's alley. I'm not going to lie. I've already said it. He won his Super Bowl this year. They're at the top of the Forbes list again. But I don't know. I mean, it's going to be hard to bring his sons in because they paid Dak, they paid CeeDee Lamb. They don't have a whole lot of cap space, although I think they can make a couple of moves and free up some cap space. But I mean, Robert Saleh has also said that there's also been reports that Robert Saleh has interest in this job, and there has been interest in Robert Saleh with this job. And to me, that might make a better fit than Deion Sanders would. I know it's not going to bring the spectacle that Deion Sanders would, but I think if they're legit concerned about winning and not about attention, Robert Saleh's the guy. Like, you've got a stud defensive player that Robert Saleh could build around, and he knows what to do with that.
Yeah, I think again, if it's what does Jerry want to do? Does he want it about spectacle, or does he want it about football? I think that's really what it's going to come down to. Like you said, I think Robert Saleh is a great pick. I think obviously he's in talks with multiple teams, whether it's a head coaching spot or a defensive coordinator spot again. I think I think absolutely with Dallas's defense and we saw with the Jets that maybe that offense wasn't great, but man, that defense was killer where he was there. But yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to say in Dallas what Jerry's going to do, where he actually, where the dollar signs are for him. Does he really care about, he could say it all day. We care about winning football games, but at the end of the day, does he really,
No.
as long as we're talking about the Cowboys, then as long as every week Stephen A. Smith, continues to talk about them, I mean, whether they're doing good or bad, it's famous to infamy. It's hard to say.
Oh no, yeah, I totally get it, and I mean, that's one we'll keep an eye on because apparently there had been um, continuing talks between Jerry and Dion, and there's reports out there that Jerry is leading this search himself. Like Jerry is the one spearheading this search. If that gives you any clue as to where the Cowboys might be leaning. We mentioned Robert Saleh, and so some of the latest head coaching news that is coming out. He is also tied to the Jaguars job. And there is, I believe, prior relationship. Trent Baalke, I guess, was there before John Lynch. So I guess you could kind of have some loose Niners ties with that. Aaron Glenn being tied to the Saints. Ben Johnson being said that there's a strong interest in the Raiders job as well. Mike McCarthy, of course, he's left, but he is already interviewing for the Bears job. That one is another one that is said to be a lock, pretty much. It would be McCarthy to the Bears. Out of these ones that are seemingly starting to come together, with maybe Saleh to the Jags, if the heat there, if the smoke there is real fire. Aaron Glenn to the Saints, McCarthy to the Bears, or Ben Johnson to the Raiders. Which of those are you thinking is possibly the best fit?
I think it's hard, man. It's with the team that's pretty showed great success was the Bears. I think McCarthy, he has out of his 18, I think 18 seasons, he's gone to the playoffs, 12 of them, something like that. I think that's a solid spot for him, actually. I think it's going to be a bigger surprise than most expect. I know a lot of Bears fans are hoping for a guy like Ben Johnson because he's, all the play calling, all the, that he can bring with. But man, do you bring in a guy who has a lot of flash, but, get him a first year in there, or do you get a guy who can be successful when he has a quarterback who can build around and make a solid offense, and maybe doesn't have the owner so far controlling the team as much as Jerry Jones was with the Cowboys. So it's hard to say. I think that's a solid pick for sure. I think that's probably going to be one of the more surprising successful ones, I think.
The one that would interest me is if the smoke there is real, if there is fire where that smoke is, the one that would interest me, because I think it's a given, McCarthy to the Bears was probably the given, another one of those. But the one that would intrigue me the most would be Robert Saleh to the Jaguars. And there has been, Ben Johnson's been linked to that as well. But Robert Saleh to the Jaguars, I think, would be intriguing because he could run that San Francisco offense with Trevor Lawrence, who I think could use that along with Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby to generate a better rushing attack and take some of the pressure off of Trevor Lawrence to go out there and be the guy. Plus, there's pieces on that defense, and that defensive line is not terrible when you got Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines-Allen, and Eric Armstead on that defensive line, and a secondary that was ranked last in the league or towards the bottom. I know it was 31st or 32nd against the pass. Robert Saleh will know how to clean that up. And I think if he brings in a guy, especially if he brings in a guy from that San Francisco system, I think he would be able to kind of turn that Jags team around. The thing is that whoever goes down there is going to have to deal with Trent Baalke. And I could say this leans more, again, because of those kind of loose, you'll know more than I would on this. I don't know if Baalke and Saleh were there at the same time, but because of those loose Niners ties, I think Saleh might work better with Baalke than Ben Johnson would, but that one's more intriguing to me.
Yeah, definitely it's kind of hard to say where some of these coaches are going to go. It's always kind of a crapshoot on where they go. There's always the, what we can see again, even if Ben Johnson ends up, where people are suspecting with the Raiders, what can he get done there? So I think it's going to be, kind of a wait and see with how the pieces land and as we enter the offseason.
Michael MCD on the Twitch shouting out Ben Johnson to the Bears. That would be interesting too. Ben Johnson to the Bears with Caleb Williams, because there's pieces there already. There's pieces there with DJ Moore. You've got the quarterback. They've got a solid running back. They just really got to fix a few pieces on the offensive line and maybe upgrade some spots on the defense. That, to me, out of all of these jobs, is the most ready-made for a coach to step in, establish a culture, and get this team turned around, because they showed promise at the beginning of the season. It's just Matt Eberflus let it all fall apart. So we'll keep an eye on that one, guys. Just like Michael did in the chat, please, hey, sound off, shout out your team. Let us know if you want to, hop into the discussion. The comments are always open across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Let us know, guys. We want to hear from everybody. Shout out, rep your team. You see, I'm repping H-Town right now. So Andy will have some 49er stuff there somewhere. But again, guys, shout us out. And again, thank you to our sponsor, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. I think Andy's having some internet issues there. Shout out to the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. There he is. Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. If you guys need some tech needs, if you guys need some phone, cell phone, laptop, console repairs, go to the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. Andy, you ready to get in some game reactions from this wild card weekend?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Well, we kicked off wild card weekend with the Chargers and the Texans. The Chargers visiting the Texans in a wild card game that, hey, some people thought was going to be a bye week for the Chargers. Yeah, we all saw how that worked out. But this game, man, I'm not going to lie. I was concerned with the way this game started. The Chargers marched down there. The Texans defense held and ended up with a field goal. And then the first pass that C.J. Stroud threw to John Mechie was a fumble. And I'm sitting there going, man, here we go. But we'll first single out this Texans defense, because this to me was the best game they played all season.
Yeah, I think so. I think what they were able to accomplish really showed, especially as you talked about early in the season, what they can get done. And they showed glimpses of that throughout the season. But man, this game they really showed up, and they really made the Chargers have to work for it, and they paid for it. I think they really, kind of again obviously shut them down, and again gave Justin Herbert one of the worst games that he's had so far this season.
I would venture to say it's probably one of the worst games of his career. This was the first time that the Texans had all of their front seven healthy. They had Henry To'oTo'o, Azeez Al-Shire, Christian Harris, Anderson, Hunter, Foley Fatukasi, Danico Autry, Tim Settle, Mario Edwards. Everyone was healthy. So that defensive line was just a rotating wave of destruction for the Los Angeles Chargers, and they just made Justin Herbert's life miserable at every turn. If it weren't for that line, I would say 4 interceptions, probably would have been more like 2. But man, Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter locked it down in the secondary, and they knew exactly where Justin Herbert was going to be going with that ball. Eric Murray adds on the pick 6, and man, the Texans off to the races in that game.
Yeah, I think, again, Justin Herbert before this game had 3 interceptions for the season. Mm-hmm. And this game he had 4 alone. That goes to show you how well he didn't play and how well the defense did play for Houston. And talk about anyone who called him a bye team should be eating those words today, Rex Ryan.
Trust me, we're going to be getting to that.
But yeah, I think again, this Houston team, if this Houston team can show up against the Chiefs this week, man, that they are going to be in some trouble.
One of those key things is going to be that offense. And I'm not going to lie, the offense was doing exactly what they had been doing this last 30 days against that Chargers defense. And then, man, one of the best descriptions of this play that I heard was, of course, the fumble that C.J. Stroud picked up and then threw a bomb to Xavier Hutchinson, who was wide open. It was that 2024 C.J. Stroud fumbled that ball. 2023 C.J. Stroud picked it up and threw that pass. And that's where the game flipped. because it sparked a 99-yard touchdown drive to Nico Collins. The entire NRG Stadium was just consistently loud from that point on, and the Chargers never got back any of that momentum that the Texans stole. Flip over to the Chargers side real quick, because you did mention 4 interceptions from Justin Herbert. He threw 3 all year, and this was a game that I feel like was building for the Chargers. You kind of had that feeling that, man, okay, the Chargers could have something, but then they would get stopped. Or they would go somewhere, and then all of a sudden the game plan would fall apart this season. And it took, D'Amico Ryans and his master game planning in the playoffs to just kind of expose what the Chargers were not. And that was kind of just the epitome of consistency throughout this season. And they showed, hey, you can make this Chargers team look insanely bad.
Yeah, they've really poked holes in the Chargers, and Harbaugh's gonna have a lot of work to do in the offseason to kind of fill those holes and to clean up those gaps to try to make another run at it next year. But yeah, I mean it really did all just kind of fall apart for him there for sure.
McConkey, I think the Texans just were like, hey, we're gonna let Ladd McConkey do his thing. Of course he's going to have some explosives on us, but as long as Dobbins and Edwards don't get going, and we can make Quentin Johnston make a mistake in key moments in this game, they were going to be able to do what they did defensively. It was going to give the offense a chance, and that's exactly what happened. McConkey, 197 yards and a touchdown, and normally if you're looking at a team that allows that much from one receiver, you're talking about a dynamic game from one receiver who just dominated the other team. And that was the opposite. McConkey got most of his yards on an 86-yard touchdown after the game was out of reach. And that was after Herbert had been just punished twice by Will Anderson and by Tim Settle. And I think the Texans were okay. That could have been a play. Watching this team all season, that could have been a play that easily shook the Texans and easily got a comeback started. But they steady hands and putting the ball in Joe Mixon's hands after doing what I thought they were going to start doing in the first half after that Hutchinson play, which was throwing to open up the run. They did exactly that and finished with Joe Mixon. And it was the first time this season, outside of that Patriots game that they had, where I looked at the Texans and I said, this was a complete game. This was what I had been waiting for from this team all year, was just this complete game from start to finish where, okay, they got punched in the face a little bit, but then they came back and just dominated a team.
Yeah, and again, if you're gonna start to hit your stride, this is the time to do it. So, I mean, what a turnout for Houston to come out here and really give this Chargers team what for, and show them like, hey, this is why we deserve to be in the playoffs. Why we're again 2 years in a row going to the divisional round. It really shows how scary these AFC teams are when all 4 teams are the same ones who made it to the divisional round last year. So. It's definitely a fight for the top.
So we move on from the Texans and the Chargers. We go to a divisional game pretty much. Ravens and the Steelers meeting for the 3rd time this year in Baltimore. And this was, you talk about getting exposed. The Steelers just were not on their game, and they haven't been for the last month.
Yeah, again, when you drop 5 in a row like this, it's just, I mean, they weren't coming in here in a great mindset. They came in and got bounced early. It kind of just showed everything that the end of their season, how it just all fell apart there. I think that I think we've seen maybe the end of Mike Tomlin, in Pittsburgh. Who knows? I don't think, you can't keep, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over and expect a different result. And that's just kind of where you've gotten with Mike Tomlin here in Pittsburgh. He's going to do just enough to get you in, but we're going to bounce you out the first round.
I've got a question about that later on in the show during buy or sell, but I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The Steelers have been just good enough to get there, but they're kind of stuck, and I can't tell whose fault it is, but this team down the stretch just fell apart. And part of it, I would imagine, like the Texans, were those 3 games in 11 days over Christmas break. That's tough to do no matter what team you are. Even Baltimore and Kansas City, I know on Christmas Day that the last of that stretch of games, they looked pretty dominant, but the Chiefs had some trouble with the Texans on Saturday. Baltimore, I believe, had a close game that weekend as well against the Steelers, but they lost. But they managed to come out ahead against the Steelers. And yeah, you're right. 5 in a row to end the season. Just collapsing from a team that looked like they may win the division. And now they got questions because I believe both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are free agents. They got to figure out what to do with a guy like George Pickens, whose attitude has just gotten worse and worse and worse over the season. And the defense, which had held together and had looked great at times with TJ Watt and Highsmith, Patrick Queen and company, they kind of just got worn down and fell apart over the season too. And it's like you said, there's a lot of questions about this Pittsburgh team that need to be answered when the offseason starts in March.
When you look at it, you see that, Russell Wilson, didn't have the worst game in the world, but again, when you only rush for 30 yards, that's not helping, and when your defense allows almost 200 yards for Derrick Henry, it's just, almost 200 yards for Lamar, it's not a good time. You're just tired. They're going to keep beating you down, and they showed that. Why they really exposed that defense a lot and made them pay for it.
Yeah, and they were just able to run again, like you mentioned. Derrick Henry 186 yards, Lamar Jackson 81 yards. The highest receiver on that offense was 53 yards, 3 catches by Isaiah Likely, and so they were just running it all over Pittsburgh, and they couldn't stop them. Just the speed and the power. The Baltimore, I said earlier in the season, they got to figure out a way to make your head spin about who is going to be running this ball. Is it going to be Derrick Henry or is it going to be Lamar Jackson? And they were able to get some passing going with Zay Flowers, but he was out for this game, and so they ran it down Pittsburgh's throat with both Henry and Lamar Jackson, setting up the huge divisional round matchup that we have on Sunday night with Baltimore and Buffalo. We'll get to that one later on in the game previews. Moving on, we had kicked off the Sunday slate with the Broncos and the Bills. This one I thought would be a little bit closer than it was. And hey guys, how everyone watching? Hey, again, feel free to sound off in the comments what you guys thought about this game and the others as well. But this one I thought would be a little bit closer. And man, did it turn into the Josh Allen show.
Yeah, I mean, when Denver goes down and they go down and they score first, you're like, okay, this is, cool. We're going down. We're making some points happen, and then that's it for the rest of the night. I mean, it showed where, yeah, this is a young team. This is it's obviously rookie quarterback who had an amazing season. With Sean Payton. You could see at the back end of that season, once he started to believe and really grasp what Sean Payton was trying to make happen, the success that they had. And so I think, as they get in the offseason into year 2, I think we're going to see, more great things out of Bo Nix next season. But yeah, this was the Bills showing dominantly why, they're coming for blood. And Josh Allen, you're going to have to hit him with a freight train to make him stop right now.
Yeah, I said last week that this was going to be the measuring stick game for the Denver Broncos. And, we talked about, Bo Nix was in the Rookie of the Year conversation. And I would venture to say he might still be. And now it comes out that he was playing with fractures in his back. It just makes what he did at the back end of the season all that more impressive. But, again, And on top of that, what the Broncos were able to do with all the dead cap money that they have from Russell Wilson as well, the fact that they're even here is impressive in and of its own, considering the last 2 years they were a dumpster fire. But the Broncos, I believe, have a bright future. And if they can make some smart moves with their money and navigate this kind of pit they're in because of the Russell Wilson deal, they can definitely build. And now's the time to do it. They can improve. I could see them getting back to the playoffs. Granted, they're in a division with the Chargers and the Chiefs, who are going to be building as well. So it's easier said than done. But I could see this Broncos team right back where they were, maybe even a little bit better if they make some smart moves. And I'm not going to lie, that pass, that first touch, the only touchdown they scored, that pass from Bo Nix, that was a beauty, man. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
absolutely.
the Bills made the adjustments and shut it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it shows you how what a solid defense can do for you, because I think if you look at the stat lines, Josh Allen and Russell Wilson had pretty similar games. I think they were close in yardage, close in 2 touchdowns, but it shows you if your defense can hold up where it can take you, and I think the Bills are just, man, a full team that are on fire and are gunning towards everything they can to get to the Super Bowl.
And I think, Josh, again, I believe they had the same amount of passing yardage. It's just Allen had a higher completion percentage. He went 20 of 26 for 272 with 2 touchdowns. And I believe he took one less sack than Russell Wilson did. James Cook had a game too. That was a big difference, was that it wasn't just Josh Allen doing it through the air. James Cook was just running all over this team. And he has been, we've talked about in the past Buffalo needing to get back to the run more. James Cook this season has been dominant, and he's been healthy for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it just shows you that when you have the dynamic of Josh Allen throwing it through the air, if he needs to, Josh Allen's going to run it and try to freight trade it. Or if you have a guy like Cook who can keep you on the ground and keep the clock running, I think it's, man, just all over that offense is firing.
Yeah, and now they get to host. This is going to be a track meet, I think, on Sunday night. Wait till you see the over/under on it. There's going to be a lot of running in Buffalo on Sunday night, and a cold Buffalo on Sunday night. Moving on to the mid-afternoon game, it was the Commanders. That's the Commanders Buccaneers. Oh wow, I can't believe I didn't have this one. Anyway, we had Green Bay and then Philly. Green Bay gets the win 22-10 over the Philly gets the win 22-10 over the Green Bay Packers. Sorry, I threw myself off there. But both these teams looked off in this game. Like this game did not look like two playoff teams that were firing on all cylinders, especially for the Eagles, and that was concerning.
Yeah, I think with the Eagles, Jalen Hurts getting back in there. It's just, I agree. I think both teams seemed off again. Jordan Love, who threw 3 interceptions, trying to make something happen, and just nothing looked great in this game at all. It was definitely a weird one. It seemed like both teams weren't really sure who they were, what they were trying to get done.
Of course, the Eagles said they got lost. They found their way back to Saquon Barkley, who took over the game, 119 yards rushing, no touchdowns for Saquon. Hurts did throw for 2 touchdowns, and he didn't have a bad QBR passer rating. It was over 100 on the pass rating, 62.3 on the QBR. But the concerning part was Jordan Love. And just, I know he had, I believe it was Christian Watson who was out, who's out for the season, but Jordan Love just did not look right. He did not look comfortable. He did not look like he was able to adjust to what the Eagles were throwing at him. And I don't know, man. This to me kind of made me ask some questions about Jordan Love. Like, is he really going to be the guy for Green Bay?
Yeah, I think it definitely, where he had his sparks in the regular season, we had some great moments. This also shows like maybe he isn't the guy, or when we get to these kind of spots, like, are you going to be able to step up? And if that's the case, I mean, he hasn't shown the last couple seasons. So I don't, it's hard to say. Do you pull the ripcord on him? What can you do in the off season? Who can you get him with? Are there targets you can, acquire for him or something to make this better? But yeah, I mean, he has to play better in these situations to get to that next level.
I mean, they got him the running back in Josh Jacobs, and he has helped out with it. I mean, he's kind of carried this Green Bay team all year. I think they need to get him some better weapons in the wide receiving side of things and on the tight end side of things. So that way he kind of has that outlet to go to. So that way he has that safety blanket. Because for me, it's why it was either Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs. I mean, those are the two Green Bay wide receivers that I can name. Other than that, it was all Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs. And I think it showed. And Philly had the better game plan, but they need to get Jalen Hurts right. And I think they almost treated this like a ramp-up game coming off of that concussion. Mm-hmm. So, but we move on to the Sunday night game, the correct game this time. The Commanders and the Buccaneers. We thought this one was going to be a good game. It was the only close game of the weekend. And boy, did it deliver. Jaden Daniels put on a show.
Yeah, I think, Jaden Daniels showed why he's in the top spot of the Rookie of the Year conversation. Even when you listen to the broadcast of it, and they're just going like, he doesn't play like a rookie. Mm-hmm. He doesn't make those kind of mistakes. He doesn't, he has, there were a couple times where, most guys, he had 3 defenders in his face and stood there, and ate it. And still got the pass off. I mean, most guys, especially, guys who can move, would have tried to run out and make something happen. There are a couple of times where he's scary because he can do both. He can take off, but he's willing to sit in that pocket and just eat it to make the clean pass off. And man, Jay Daniels look great. Commanders look great, but so did Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, man. Just Mayfield doing everything he can to show you why he should be in the talk of great quarterbacks in this league right now. Just going back and forth, man. It was what a game this was.
I mean, he only had 3 incompletions on the night. He had a passer rating of 146.5. Did Baker Mayfield, and he was playing a pretty close to perfect game right up until that missed handoff, and that was the difference, honestly, because I really thought this game was about to go to overtime. I really thought this was going to be that close of a game, where it was going to come down to the absolute wire. And, of course, I don't know if Baker was going to pull that or what. It was just one of those fatal miscommunications that you see that can flip it. And, of course, Commanders never looked back after that. And you're right. Like, Jaden Daniels put on an absolute show. 268 yards, 110.2 passer rating. And this to me was a battle of 2 teams that were on the same level. I will say this. I think if the Bucs had Chris Godwin, they could have taken it, because it really just has been Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin and a well-coached defense with Washington. But Tampa has more weapons, undoubtedly. And I think if they would have had Chris Godwin, this might have swung more in Tampa's favor. But Washington, again, Dan Quinn has something there, and they're going to be able to build. They're going to be able to get pieces. Guys are going to want to come play with this young quarterback. There's pieces that are going to be out there. T. Higgins is going to be out there. Who knows? Devontae Adams could be out there. There's going to be some free agents and some draft guys that they can bring into this team, and they're only going to get better. I mean, you know how the NFC East goes, where no one team can win the division back-to-back. Dan Quinn plays his cards right with this quarterback. He could have a team that might break that. And I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see this Commanders-Eagles matchup, because I think they're going to put on a show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think it really also shows how for the Commanders, what a turnaround getting new owners can do for you. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it was 2005 since the last playoff win. Like, man, what a turn, that these guys have had, and Jaden Daniels leading this. And again, what a great game. And it shows you how one mistake can change everything for you. And, I think, Dan Quinn's they're going in there and they're going to show, I mean, he could easily, Jaden Daniels could easily, take advantage for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm excited to see how far this team can go. I really am. And I'm happy for Commanders fans because they have just been living in misery ever since Dan Snyder took over that team. And once they sold it, you could just feel the relief in that fan base. And they deserve this. They deserve to see this team be this good. It's been since the early 90s that this team was even relevant. Relevant enough to be like, hey, they can if they do some things right, they can make a run. And I'm there. If the Commanders, they may be a little bit ahead of their rebuild. Jaden Daniels could always pull a CJ Stroud and kind of take a step back next year, but the future is bright for Washington. We go to the last game of Wild Card Weekend, which is the Vikings and the Rams. This was a game that I thought was going to be a lot closer than I thought it was. But Green Bay discovered the blueprint for shutting the Vikings down, and the Rams took notice.
Yeah, and I think with McVay being able to watch Detroit, shut the Vikings down. I mean, they had that extra week they had that extra time to game plan, and he, like you said, took advantage of it. Showed them what needed to be done to stop any momentum on the Vikings side, and just make this team with 14 wins. Just show them why they can. They had two teams they couldn't beat all season. They didn't beat Detroit, and they didn't beat the Rams, and it's just, man. It's just the song of Minnesota. You can only get so far, but you can never get to the big one. And it's what a rough one. But yeah, I mean, McVay had everything drawn up the way they needed to stop this Vikings team.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold turning back into a pumpkin. There's questions surrounding him now. He looked like he was going to be paid as one of the top guys in the league. And I don't think this takes away a whole lot of what this season was. If anything, I think you kind of look at what the game planning is, and the need to adjust that the Vikings OCs had, and Kevin O'Connell have to look at, because it does seem like the Rams played a lot of the same game plan that Detroit did to really just put this Vikings team down. And of course, I get the circumstances and everything, but I'm sure the sudden change of venue didn't help a whole lot for the Vikings. But this Rams team, we said if the good Rams team shows up, watch out, because the sky's the limit for this Rams team when they're on. It seems like with Verse, they found a guy who can kind of be that linchpin on the defense to replace Aaron Donald. And I mean, this is a young, hungry, talented defense. Of course, Kupp and Nakua, if they can stay healthy, they're dangerous. And Stafford, I know Stafford's kind of the old guy in the room now, but he is playing as good as he did going into that when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think LA is this, again, that kind of dark horse team coming into this, especially coming out of the West. That was a weird division anyways. Who knows who's going to win that till the very end, and they're just showing like you can't count them out. They, Sean McVay is showing them, showing everyone when he can, all his pieces are playing right, that he's going to make people pay for it.
Yeah, and of course, you don't want to count out the mastermind, the wonderkind, Sean McVay, when it comes to game planning and shutting a team down. He's been there before. He knows how to get back. And it looks like if the pieces hold together and they can remain consistent, they'll be back there again. So, but that'll do it for the games of Super Wildcard Weekend. Guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Extra Point. It'll be at Justice8908 on Twitch. Ryan Justice for you guys on YouTube, Facebook. Go like The Extra Point with Ryan Justice to catch us. I guess Wednesdays for the playoff. Probably be the best Wednesdays for the playoffs. Usually it's Tuesday or Wednesday. Whenever the life lets us do it. But be sure to go like, share, and subscribe. Get all the updates. Get all the alerts. We got some fun stuff coming up. Hopefully coming down the pike. And again, guys, sound off in the comments. We love to hear from everybody. We love to hear in the chats. Hunter shouted in a little bit. We had some people rooting for Ben Johnson to go to the Bears. So let us know, guys. We love hearing from y'all. Now it's time for 3 up and 3 down. This is where I'm going to highlight three guys that need to be highlighted after this weekend, and then of course some people that we definitely want to kind of kick while they're down. First up on the up list, of course, we just mentioned him, Jaden Daniels, another chapter in the book that he's writing for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said earlier, but yeah, he is. I mean, just besides just if he can beat Detroit this weekend, I mean, he's all but put an exclamation point on the sentence on why he's that Rookie of the Year, and just what an amazing job he's done. I know when we talked about the draft, who these rookie quarterbacks were going to pop off. Obviously Caleb Williams was the talk, but I remember you saying that we're going to be watching that Jaden Daniels be doing something great, and he's shown it, man. He's shown that he may not have gotten first, but he's the best, probably the best one out of this class.
Yeah, and he has shown it. He has been probably one of the most explosive players in the league this year. He had some competition, I feel like, with Bo Nix there for a little bit. Brian Thomas throwing his name in the hat for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But after these last couple of performances that he's had, he's just absolutely run away with it. And getting this team to the playoffs, getting a playoff win, I think that sealed it. That game on Sunday night sealed it for Jaden Daniels. And if he can keep it going, man, he can get this team to the NFC Championship. And who knows what happens from there.
And I think also that isn't in this coaching cycle is Cliff Kingsbury, and I think without Jaden Daniels, he wouldn't be in that conversation of a potential head coach move. So I think again, high tide raises all ships, and it really has there in Washington.
Yeah, and of course Cliff Kingsbury is another guy who is on that list of guys that might be looking at some head coaching jobs. He's done wonders for Jaden Daniels this year. Moving on, next up on the up list is going to be Josh Allen. Josh Allen had an amazing game against Denver that really showed. I think he's using these playoffs to really state his case for MVP and just bust through this glass ceiling that he's had in the playoffs. Of course, like I said, divisional round to me is always the hardest round because you're going to get, I think, even more intensity out of these teams trying to get to that championship game than you would, because, in that championship game, I think guys can relax a little bit and be like, okay, it's just one more game. But now, in that divisional round, you're still trying to separate yourself from these other teams. Josh Allen did an amazing job of it.
Yeah, I think, again, we are seeing a peak Josh Allen. Again, we've talked about it multiple times in previous, shows that, usually by this point, by the divisional round, we are seeing a Josh Allen who is limping his way, to the divisional round, that he really has put this team on his back and he's carried them and his knees are buckling because of the weight. This is a different Josh Allen than we've seen in years past. This is, probably one of the freshest, the more dominant, showings. And this week, man, if he can get past Baltimore the way he's been playing, whew.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I actually have a take on that Baltimore Buffalo game that I'll lay on you once we get to the previews. I had to do it this week, just with the excitement, just with the anticipation, just with the unexpectedness. And it might be the last time that I'm happy this season. Top of the mountain has to go to Houston Texans because they were written off, man. Bye week. And, of course, they're being written off again this week. And I hope they bring that same energy to Kansas City and get redemption for the day I don't ever want to relive again. But back in 2020. But, I mean, nobody thought they were going to win this game. And, honestly, there was a part – I'm not going to lie. I'm going to confess a little bit here. There was a part of me that was like, God, I hope they lose this game. Because if they do and the offense is bad, that means Bobby Slowick is gone. And we get to possibly put a fresh paint of coat on this offense. But they won. They got it together offensively. The lightning struck. They flipped the switch. the defense, of course, is a championship level defense. And teams have won. Teams have gotten hot in the playoffs and gone all the way on a defense like that. And who knows? But for this week, the standout performance to me goes to this Texans team.
Yeah, again, I totally agree. I think for a team that, for the most part, the teams that won were already winning. They were already looking pretty solid, maybe besides the Eagles, who, that's a lot of that has to do with the last minute injuries. So we kind of really weren't sure. Every other team did exactly kind of what we expected,
Yeah.
Texans were very up and down, especially very closer to down on the last few weeks of the regular season. And for them to come in to have a showing like that, to put the Chargers away with ease, I think that really shows you how they're going to run into Arrowhead and what kind of motivation they have to get past them.
And I think it all started, if I'm being honest, now that I think about it, I think it all started on that first drive against Tennessee, where Stroud went 6 for 6 and then capped it off with a touchdown. But yeah, they had the standout performance this week, and got to tip my H-Town cap to them. Call me a homer if you guys want, but hey, did y'all expect Houston to beat the Chargers? Probably not. We went 3 up. Now we're gonna go 3 down. First up on the down list, Sam Darnold, man. You played well all season, and then the last 2 weeks, you turned back into Sam Darnold.
Yeah, what is it? Someone made the comment of, you can take Sam Darnold out of the Jets, but you can't take the Jets out of the Sam Darnold. And, it's so unfortunate to see that happen, to see just kind of everything fall apart for him there, in the most important time for him. Even if Minnesota loses, but he has a great showing, a lot of things change for him, but he just didn't have the showing that you would expect a guy who helped bring this team to 14 wins have in the postseason.
Yeah, and now you got the questions about Sam Darnold, which a lot of people were talking, man, he might be paid in the top 5 coming out of the season. And he might still be, I think the most logical thing that is going to happen with Sam Darnold is franchise tag. He's going to get the franchise tag. He's going to stay with Minnesota, although, of course, you get all the rumors flying around that, hey, JJ McCarthy's going to be there, and we're going to see what happens. But yeah, for it to all come crashing down on Sam Darnold like this was harsh after he had been in the MVP conversation. He had his best year ever. You go 14-3, getting into the playoffs, just missing, coming down to the last game to get the number 1 seed, and then for it to just look like it did these last 2 weeks. For Sam Darnold to turn back into New York Jets Sam Darnold and see the ghosts again, that was rough. And yeah, you're in your spot on the down list this week. Next up on the down list is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, 5 in a row to end the year. You didn't end it with a bang. You ended it with a whimper. You weren't dangerous. You were dangerless, I guess. But I mean, Pittsburgh, it wasn't quite the collapse that you got out of like Jacksonville or even Philly last year, but it was still a pretty big collapse from this Pittsburgh team that looked poised to win the NFC North.
Yeah, I mean, for a team to lose, 5 in a row like this, again, it is sad. Again, they've gone 0-6 last time, every time they hit the playoffs. It's just, man, it is so sad for them. They definitely, we thought that we were going to see something new. Okay, we saw some life. Russ started getting hot. Mike Tomlin's, he's still great. He's still going to do it. And then we end up with the same exact result that we have every time with the Steelers. And so, yeah, it's definitely rough to see them do this. I think it's definitely a time for some sort of change. In Pittsburgh, something has to majorly develop. Otherwise, you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And I will say this. I feel more comfortable with Russell Wilson being a quarterback than I do Justin Fields, because I don't think they get here with Justin Fields. I don't. In fact, I think the quarterback play they is a big question for the Pittsburgh Steelers had they gone with Justin Fields. So give them credit for that. But because I don't think Russell Wilson was the problem here. I think the problem was lack of weapons on offense, because you have George Pickens, but he's uncontrollable. There's a reason there's a meme of, hey, Najee Harris for 6 yards. Meanwhile, George Pickens down the field is brawling like he's in an MMA fight. There's a reason that meme exists. And I think but it's nothing new with the Steelers receivers, star guys on the offense having attitude problems. That's a Mike Tomlin specialty. Going all the way back to Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell. So I don't think the culture that Mike Tomlin has created with this team, you can talk about the winning seasons and everything, but I don't think the culture that Mike Tomlin has created with this team is going to be able to foster him to another Super Bowl. And if they keep allowing guys like George Pickens, like Deontay Johnson, like Chase Claypool to come in and upset this locker room, that has to factor in to the owner's decision to keep Tomlin around. If the culture changes all this that's needed for this team to move past where they have been, you got to get rid of Mike Tomlin. Otherwise, again, it's like you said, it's going to be more of the same.
Mm-hmm. Again, 18 years is a long time to only have one ring.
Yep. But I mean, this is a franchise that's only had 3 coaches in its entire history, which is ridiculous. So it takes a lot to get fired from the Pittsburgh Steelers or ride off into the sunset. It might be time for Tomlin to ride off into the sunset. We mentioned him earlier in the show. I told you he was coming back. This week's Factory of Sadness goes to one Rex Ryan. How are you just going to automatically ride off a team that is 6th in the league in total defense? I mean, you're going to write off the best corner in the league, backed up by probably the best rookie corner in the league, a guy that's got a strong case for Defensive Rookie of the Year, just because of what you saw on Christmas Day and going into it. You're going to write off the entire season. You're just going to write off a team that held Josh Allen to 9 completions, that got 5 interceptions off Jared Goff, that made Jordan Love look dumb in Lambeau Field, that started off 5-1, and you're just going to say it's a bye week for the Chargers, who have had an up and down defense, a receiver that can't catch, one who very well could be in the Rookie of the Year running in Ladd McConkey the Honky, and you're just going to say it's a bye week? I loved watching it blow up in Rex Ryan's face.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, he has those comments. He's talking about how he's going to be the coach of the Jets, and just, I understand you want to, you're a talking head, you're a pundit, and you got to say things. But yeah, I'm always glad when things like this always, backfire on a guy like Rex Ryan.
If I'm being honest, because, I watch the reports, and I know sometimes it's speculation, trying to link the dots together. After that game, you had the whole, oh, hey, the Jets are open to talking to Rex Ryan and everything. After that game, it came out, no interest in Rex Ryan from the Jets. And I think that had to do something with it. If logically, or, hey, I don't want to say educated guess, but solid speculation, a hunch, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That could have had something to do with it. That Rex Ryan just was not paying attention to a team that had been doing what they had been doing on defense all year, and letting it and saying that they were going to give a team like the Chargers a bye week, and then having it blow up in this phase. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Factory of Sadness. Great. Congratulations, Rex Ryan. Again, hey guys, thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Go check out our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. And of course, like, share, and subscribe. YouTube, Ryan Justice, Twitch at Justice8908, Facebook. Go check out The Extra Point with Ryan Justice. And again, guys, sound off in the comment, especially for this next segment coming up. We love to hear from you guys. And of course, check us out on Spotify. We usually have the show, the audio version of the show, up the next day on Spotify. And so go check it out. Follow us there if you want to go back and re-listen to the show while you're working out, while you're in the car, while you're at work. But go check us out on Spotify, guys. Now it is time for Buy or Sell. This is where, of course, if you've ever seen a buy or sell segment, we're going to throw some takes at each other. We're going to throw some takes at you guys. Let us know if you buy or sell. We're going to let each other know if we buy or sell. Tell us if we're wrong. Tell us if you agree. Love to hear from you guys. But all right, first up on buy or sell, we mentioned it earlier in the show, but now it's time to put it in writing, put it on the record. Buy or sell. Vikings will move on from Sam Darnold after the season.
For me, I'm going to sell. I think because again, he did help get you to 14 wins this season. I know there's a young, hungry quarterback waiting in the wings. But I think also, it can't just come down to Sam Darnold. I think there needs to be some, like you said, there needs to be some changes on maybe the mindset and how we call on play calling and what we do there. Again, I think probably the franchise tag is the way to go. Definitely a prove yourself, let's prove yourself again kind of deal. But I'm definitely selling that they're going to, with this much success, I have a feeling they'll probably stick around.
This one was actually kind of tough. I know I mentioned the franchise tag earlier, that's probably the most logical thing that's going to happen with the Vikings. I could buy it, though, because I think there's going to be some team that's got plenty of cap space, that's got plenty of weapons, that's got a coach that he likes, and the dollar sign is going to be right, where they will move on from Sam Darnold. They will say, hey, now don't get me wrong. Like I said, most likely they're going to franchise tag him, and he's going to get the money that he's worth. That averages out, his top five of the top, his average of the top five of, guys at that position, which is going to be around $40 million, around $30-40 million. If they can't come to an agreement, I can see them franchise tagging him. But if they don't come to an agreement, I can also see them saying, we've got this young quarterback in the wings, and he could definitely help. He was going to be our guy before he tore his ACL in camp. So I don't think it's going to happen, but I could buy the Vikings moving on from Sam Darnold. Next up on buy or sell, this was an interesting one. So we had the kickoff change this year, and I've been seeing it a little bit more and more that there's going to be some talks about it, at least because of the onside kick numbers that came back. I believe there was only like 3 or 4 that were recovered this year by the team that kicked it. So they're going to be looking at replacing the onside kick. And one of the things that I have seen looked at replacing the onside kick is the 4th and 20. Now, if you watch the UFL, I believe it's 4th and 15 is what they do for the onside kick. And if the team converts it, they get the ball. But if they don't, I believe the opposing team gets it at the plus 25. So what are you thinking? Buy or sell, 4th and 20 replaces the onside kick?
I'm probably going to sell the 4th and 20, but I do think the onside kick has to be changed, especially with the fact that you have to declare the onside kick now. Again, there are no surprise onside kicks. Everyone's prepared for it. The 4th and 20, I mean, I think that, that's definitely something to examine, to try out, to see, something like that, to give guys a chance. Hey, can you convert on 4th? If it's the Detroit Lions, you'll never see the team. I mean, they don't need the rule anyways because they're going to convert on 4th down.
I imagine it's going to be one of those things where it's like, hey, you can only do this if you're losing.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be something around that, but I think a change has to come to the onside kick situation. I don't know if it's going to be this 4th and 20 idea, but I feel like there has to be something that has to change up, because what's the point of the onside kick anymore? It's just not. Again, we're not. It's not like we're in the Super Bowl, trying to start the half with the onside kick and just change the game. So,
what are your thoughts on the new kickoff? Like, how do you think it's worked out this season? Now that we've had a full season of looking at it.
I think with the kickoff, I mean, we saw some of those returns. We saw quite a few returns, and I thought it worked out really well. I think maybe there has to be a little bit more to incentivize teams to kick. I think they mentioned that early in the season that we bump you up if you don't return it, we're going to bump you up to the 30. Maybe you go to the 35.
Yeah,
I think there has to be something to incentivize kickers to kick it into the return zone more, because again, we're still having a lot of touchbacks and with that. But I think that when we see guys, we saw some, as teams started to figure it out, that man, it can be still just as dynamic. I think you just have to, trying to incentivize the kick zone more.
I think the kickoff rule has worked out beautifully. I've seen more returns than I have in a long time, and a lot of it came from the UFL, because this was the kickoff rule that was in the XFL. The UFL, I think, uses the regular kickoff now, but this was the kickoff rule in the UFL. And I think it's worked out beautifully. I know that there's some guys that have turned their noses up to it, and I would expect there be some tweaks to the kickoff rule this year, but I haven't really seen a whole lot of injuries coming from it. There's been some big returns. Like it's like, okay, the kickoff is back. And I think it worked. It worked out kind of like when they moved the extra point back. And it was like, okay, I can't just run and grab a beer or go to the bathroom during the extra point. Like, it's not automatic anymore. We saw plenty of that this year.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as this 4th and 20 goes, I think this is going to be one of those things where if they are really considering it, they're going to be paying close attention to the UFL this year, because that's one of their rules. And they're going to see, and I believe the UFL and the NFL do kind of work together. The NFL will say, hey, we want to see more of this and see if it works. So, you may see some teams in the UFL that might be out of it, kind of experimenting with it towards the end of the year. So that way the NFL could get a gauge and get some tape on how this would work. Because I believe in the UFL, it's 4th and 15. 4th and 20 seems far. That seems really far for me. I don't even think Patrick Mahomes could go out and get a 4th and 20. 4th and 15, maybe, because we've seen that happen before on 4th and 15. Definitely not 4th and 10, but a 4th and 15, I think it was a little bit more fair. I'm going to sell that. I'm going to buy that it does at some point. It's not going to happen next year. Not going to happen anytime soon. It took them 3 years of having spring football to get this new kickoff in. So I think it's going to take another year or two for them to really look at this onside kick. Next up, buy or sell. Mike Vrabel has the same effect on the Patriots that DeMeco Ryans had on the Texans.
I'm going to buy that. I think we've seen because of the success he had, in Tennessee, I think, and coming back to, his, essentially, or the organization that he helped be a part of to get those championship rings. I think that, he's going to have a pretty dynamic effect in New England, and, can quickly make adjustments to bring that team to a winning team again.
I'm going to buy it too, because I believe it's the same story almost. DeMeco, who was defensive coordinator, coming up in his coaching journey through the 49ers, before he came back to the team that drafted him. Mike Vrabel, same thing. Except he came up through the Texans, got a head coaching job after a year as defensive coordinator with Houston. In Tennessee, you saw all the success that he had there, and now he's coming back to New England, who has been kind of listless after Bill Belichick left. And that's ironic. Both coaches that they replaced are named Bill. But yeah, like I think he could have the same effect on this team that DeMeco Ryans had with the Texans. I think he could definitely shore up some of the shore up some of the holes that are there, tighten some of the screws in New England that need to be tightened, and get this team to where it needs to go. And on top of that, he may even have a bigger effect, because this team is not in as dire straits front office wise as the Texans were. They've got top 10 pick. They've got, they're going to be at the top of each round in this draft. They've got plenty of cap space. Mike Vrabel, I think, could come in. I'm going to buy it. Mike Vrabel could come in and turn this team around really quick.
Yeah.
Last up, and we mentioned this, we spent some time on this, but again, now it's time to put it on the table. Buy or sell. Mike Tomlin is the one keeping Steelers in purgatory.
Again, I'm gonna buy this. I mentioned it that again. He hasn't had a losing season yet, which is incredible. I don't know how you become again 18 years. 18 years with the same team is an incredible feat to begin, especially in today's league.
Mm-hmm.
When teams are ready to fire someone after one season, to have 18 years consistently with one team.
We've seen it. We've seen a coach get fired after going 14-2.
Yeah, exactly.
Marty Schottenheimer.
Yeah. So it's like, to have this consistency is great, but in the last back half of his tenure there, it has not been good. We are doing the exact same thing. It is Groundhog's Day every year in Pittsburgh, it seems like. And, you can't always say that it's a fluctuation of players, right? Players coming in, players coming out, but you're getting the same result. The constant is Mike Tomlin. So I think, even for, don't get me wrong, he's done great things. And, I know, the Steelers are happy for him. And I don't know if going to a different team will have the same, what everyone's like to call the Andy Reid effect, but, it can't hurt at this point. Again, if you are such a great coach, try at another team, bring them up, get yourself there somewhere else. But yeah, I think as long as Tomlin stays in there, Pittsburgh's going to stay in this purgatory in this endless Groundhog's Day for them.
If we're ranking I know it doesn't factor in overall to like the overall season, but if we're ranking the team's total offenses in the postseason, the Steelers were the fourth worst. They only had like 280 yards of offense. I'm looking at their ranks right now. I keep forgetting I have to switch it over to regular season. Russell Wilson didn't even break 2,500 yards. I get it. He didn't start until 5 weeks in. Your Najee Harris did break 1,000 yards. George Pickens didn't. Your leading receiver didn't break 1,000. If we're looking at just kind of where they fit in the grand scheme of things during the season offensively, I hate when my computer starts messing up. If we're kind of looking at where they are total offense in the regular season, again, they're on the lower third of. In fact, the Texans are just above them. They're in the lower third of total offense in terms of like yards per game. They're averaging 319 yards a game. And if I'm looking at like their defense, which is supposed to be the lifeblood of the Steelers team, they're right smack dab in the middle. And that's not what you want. Again, it's purgatory. They are right in the middle of the league. And this is a team, you talk about the life cycles of a football team and where they are in the coaching cycle. And I've talked about this sometimes with the Dallas Cowboys about how they just kind of keep reinfusing life into their team and they keep keeping themselves in the same spot. Pittsburgh's the same spot. This is a team that I feel like needs to be torn down and rebuilt because I think the culture that Mike Tomlin has, granted, don't get me wrong, he's got a good culture, but this whole the standard is the standard thing is kind of worn out its welcome. And you've seen just kind of the attitudes of some of the guys that have been on this team. And that all comes back to Mike Tomlin. I know they're not with him anymore, but that was generated and fostered under Mike Tomlin's watch. And sometimes it's like, okay, it's time to ride off into the sunset. You've had some good years with this team. And again, I think at this point, this winning is keeping them from got top of the line guys coming out of college. And they can't move up without giving up some significant pieces. So yeah, I'll buy Mike Tomlin keeping the Steelers in purgatory, but I think the front office also has something to do with it too because they won't get rid of him. That'll do it for buy or sell, guys. Again, hey, thanks for tuning in tonight. Like, share, subscribe. Get all the notifications on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and of course Spotify the next day. Well, here we are. We're going to preview divisional round. Again, I've said it a couple times during the show. It's the toughest round in the playoffs for me because A, my team's never been past it. But B, it feels like this is where the teams really get separated from the teams that are like genuinely systematically good from the teams that are either, hey, not quite, really not quite there yet, are bumping their head against the ceiling, or the teams that just got lucky. And you'll really see the separation in this round. And we start with our game previews. Of course, the lines will be done through ESPN Bet. We start this weekend off with my Houston Texans going back to the scene of the crime, multiple crimes, with both the, of course, blackest day in Texans history almost, the 24-0 lead that they blew in Arrowhead, and, of course, the Tank Dell injury 3 weeks ago. Going to Kansas City, to Arrowhead, where the Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites with an over-under of 41.5.
Yeah, I think, this is going to be a tough one. Now, to start off with the divisional round, this is probably one of the most exciting weeks of football that we have here, like you said. These games are probably tougher than, even, when you get to the Super Bowl. Buddy of mine, Mike Kuhn, he loves, I agree with him. He loves this week. So do I. I think it's going to be a good week for football again. And this one's going to be tough. This one's going to be real tough because, again, you have a team in the Houston Texans that are coming off a big win, a big dominant win over the Chargers, and a Kansas City team that has taken essentially the last 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
So it's going to, does the extra rest help? Maybe. I don't know. I think, they were definitely beat up when they went out. It is hard to go into Arrowhead and win. Very few teams have done that. No team this season was able to. So they're 0-8 at home. So I think it's a hard one to go in there and get a dominant win. But I think Houston has all the momentum on their side that they can come in here and upset the defending champs.
One stat I learned today that kind of scared me, and I think it's one of those stats that I think could be thrown out there, and I'm like, like how when you say, hey, a quarterback has not missed this amount of passes, and all of a sudden they throw an incompletion.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes has never turned the ball over in the playoffs. Never.
Really?
Not once. He has not turned the ball over in the playoffs. And not a fumble. He's never thrown an interception. But he has not turned the ball over in the playoffs.
That is a wild stat.
Yeah. And the Texans turned the ball over. The Texans got 4 turnovers last week off of a quarterback that had only thrown 3 interceptions all year.
Yeah.
I think there's something to the Chiefs laying off for 24 days. The Texans had the opportunity to do something similar. They played their starters in the first drive of that Tennessee game and then started systematically pulling guys out. And we're still dominating the Titans, but it's the fake Oilers. Anyway, but they started pulling guys out and still looked good. And I think I was listening, of course, to some of the FS1 guys today. Of course, bulletin board material really played a factor into that Texans getting into that Chargers game too. And there's been plenty of it. You've had guys saying Texans have 0 chance. Looking at you, Nick Wright. You've had a bunch of guys picking against the Texans. Only one person again, the same guy who picked them against the Chargers last week, picked them on the NFL.com preview, picked them against the Chiefs. And you go back to it. The Chiefs have kind of barely escaped a lot of games this season. They only were able to put up 21, I think, against the Browns and had several turnovers that game. This is a Texans team that is going to come after you. Don't get me wrong. Again, it's still Patrick Mahomes. And I am still crazy nervous about this game because it is Patrick Mahomes. There has been some crimes against the Texans committed in this round, in this stadium, by Patrick Mahomes. There's so many storylines in this game. DeAndre Hopkins facing his old team in the same round, the team he was playing for in that 24-0 game, going back to where Tank Dell got hurt. And I want to see what the momentum of this Texans team looks like in these first few drives of the game. I want to see how rusty the Chiefs are because this isn't your same Texans team that got up 24-0 on you and then Bill O'Brien just gave the game back. I think if they build a lead like that, I'm not confident this offense is there to do that yet. But if they build a lead like that, this defense has what it takes to shut you down in a way that Texans team back in 2019 didn't. And
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, especially on that point, it's not like this Kansas City Chiefs team has been known to be firing hot off in the first. They've taken time to build and again survive is most of the season. It wasn't until the last couple of weeks of the regular season that okay, now Kansas City started to look dominant, and not against great teams either.
No.
But so I mean, to firing out the gates is not what Kansas City has been doing all year. Don't get me wrong, they have won it, but again, if this Texans defense can hold Patrick Mahomes and, take away his weapons, man, and if they can get to him, that's the key, I think, is that defense. Can they rock him a little bit and throw him off his rhythm? It's going to be hard for Kansas City, what they've shown this year, to really make that comeback.
Well, and here's the thing too, of course, Texans didn't have Azeez Al-Shaair in the last game they played. They didn't have Christian Harris. They didn't have, I don't believe they had Denico Autry, or no, they didn't have Foley Fatukasi. They didn't have their D line. And that defensive line can create, even though they're missing Jalen Petrie, that defensive line can create enough problems that's not going to be a big deal. And the main guy that they got to shut down is Travis Kelce. And that's going to be the you got to figure out how to do that in crucial situations and not let Travis Kelce beat you in those situations. And then B, not let Mahomes get out and use his legs. And that's going to be, I think, where this game is determined. I want to see how this Texans defensive line can shut down the Chiefs. I went with it last week. I'm going to stick my flag in the ground again. I'm rolling with my Texans this week. I got to.
Absolutely. And again, I don't see it's not like it's this like, oh, they're going to get blown out. No, man. If we're going against a team that hasn't played in 3 weeks, a team that is coming off real hot, for me going with the Chiefs is just hard to count them out this season. Every time they've pulled it out, and they've shown why they're, back-to-back champs and going for that third. And it's hard to count them out, especially, Mahomes in the playoffs is not someone you can easily count out.
No. Now we go on to the game that I'm probably going to be crying through, or have a good chance of crying through. Washington, both number 1 seeds play on Saturday, by the way. Washington goes to Detroit, a banged up Detroit defense, although getting Alex Anzalone getting him back showed that they had something there with that defense. That unlocked that defense a little bit. And there's a chance they get David Montgomery back this week. In fact, it's looking like they are going to get David Montgomery back, and the return of Sonic and Knuckles. Oh boy, this could be an electric game. And much like I said about Buffalo and Denver, this could be the game that you really see where Washington stands in the pecking order of the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see how well Jaden Daniels can take this Commanders team and take it to Detroit, who's going to try to run it down your throat, whose defense is coming, yeah, they're coming off the bye week. They're going to come red hot in your face. They're going to come at you. They're going to try to, stomp him out and not let him make those explosive plays on the ground, and force him to stand in that pocket and, make those plays downfield. So I think, we'll see what Jaden Daniels can do. And I think this is going to be a big game for him, and what we'll see. Again, I think, everyone's made the joke. This game is like a Madden game. There's no, both Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell are going to go on it for nothing less. If it's, 4th and 50, they'll probably still try to go for it. There's going to be no 4th downs. It's going to be a wild game. I think, in the game planning, I think both teams have said, in the way they've been playing, that we are going full throttle the entire time.
Screw man, this might end up looking like NFL Blitz. Or NFL Extreme, if you want to get real deep in there. NFL Blitz, definitely. But you and I both go on the Lions. This is too much of a complete team. I think they are honestly, they've got a lot to play for emotionally, because I think they want to get to the Super Bowl so they can get Aiden Hutchinson back.
Yeah,
and have him be
I
on
mean,
the field.
that's the story, right? That's the story, is to get Aiden Hutchinson back, to get Goff in there, from Dan Campbell to go from the 0-6 to be on the 0-16 team, to become the coach of the team that goes and, for them, hopefully wins the Super Bowl. Like, that's the Cinderella story we are telling here, 4 years in the making, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to stop that right now.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at the matchups this week, this could be the best. This could be the best chance for anyone to stop the Lions. I know the Commanders are 9.5-point dogs. The over/under is through the roof on this game, but I don't know. I think this is the team that is best equipped to hang with the Lions, because it's going to be, they're going to throw whatever the Lions are going to throw. They're going to try. Dan Quinn's going to try and throw it right back at him. He's coached a team to the Super Bowl before.
Yeah.
The Lions are just too damn talented, man.
Oof.
There's just too much talent on that team. This would be interesting, though. We move on to the Sunday slate. The Rams go to the Eagles. And, of course, like we said, the Eagles did not play well in this last game that they had against the Packers. And, again, it was Saquon Barkley bailing them out. And I think that's what it's going to have to take again. But the way this Rams defense played and the way that they kind of shut down Aaron Jones, who only had, 48 yards on 13 carries. I'm not saying they could do that to Saquon Barkley, but this Rams defense definitely could put up a fight against an Eagles team that looked like they were kind of struggling with some things on offense.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how how the Green Bay game really helped, them kind of meld a little bit. Are they going to put the ball, all into Saquon's hands? Are they going to let Jalen Hurts, kind of air it out maybe a little bit more than they had in that Packers game? But we'll see. McVay's, again, he can always, make a game plan for anybody. But if they can stop Saquon, they have a great chance. The Rams have a great chance of winning this game, because, again, like it's been all year, they're putting it on Saquon to carry them to a win. I think with the Eagles, though, I think they have been, besides the kind of the weird game last week, they have been firing a lot better consistently, more than the Rams have. Hopefully that was a get right game in the head for them, and they can come back to the Eagles team that we saw down the stretch.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go ahead and reveal the picks here. I think the Rams just have a little bit more momentum. It seems like they've kind of figured some things out. Now, don't get me wrong, you could always have hey, Puka's going to get hurt, Cooper Kupp's going to get hurt. They've been very injury prone throughout their careers, but I don't know. I like the Rams coming in. And I know they're 6-point underdogs, but I like the Rams coming in and just carrying this momentum over a Philly team that just did not look right last week.
Yeah.
So you got the Eagles too, but we'll see. I mean, and here, how about this? How poetic would it be for the NFC Championship to be Stafford going back to Detroit for the NFC Championship to determine who goes back to the Super Bowl?
Man,
that would honestly, if that were to happen, that trade they made might be the greatest trade of all time.
I mean, absolutely.
So I would count that as like, oh crap, that's one of the great trades of all time. I don't know. Yeah, for both teams, because it worked out for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, both teams, people are always want to look again without Goff, without any of the quarterback in this Lions offense. I don't know if they get to where they're at so quickly. So I think I think somehow in this trade, all parties won. Extraordinary.
Which is rare, really rare.
Yeah.
The final game of the weekend will be the big one. Baltimore 1 point favorites going to the Buffalo Bills, 51.5 point total. This is a pick'em game. This is about as much of a pick'em game as you can get. I was going to say this earlier, but I think this is the game that is going to determine who wins the MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it not only declares who's going to win the MVP, but I think who's going to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC. Mm-hmm. Whoever the winner of this one, again, you have a team, if the Texans win, man, that's a tough either of these teams are a tough team to beat. And if you're the Chiefs, you hadn't done so well against them, really. So I think the winner of this team goes on to the Super Bowl for the AFC. But yeah, whoever wins this really locks up the the MVP talk about this, and man, talk about a game that who knows. It's hard to say. For me, I know I picked with who I want to win. I'm not sure who's gonna win.
No, I think I'm gonna pick. I picked who's gonna win because I can't stand one of these teams. But no, I mean you make a point there where it's like, okay, whoever wins this game goes to the Super Bowl. I'm of the thinking of, okay, whoever wins out of Kansas City and Houston has a chance because these two teams could beat up on each other. And whoever kind of comes out smoking from this game, there's a chance they're not firing on full cylinders going into that AFC Championship game. Houston beat Buffalo once, So I'm saying I want Buffalo to win. Do I think it's going to happen? No, because I'll get to that in a second because that would just be my luck. But no, this is gonna again. I feel like this is going to be a showcase game. This is going to be a masterclass in coaching, quarterback play, offensive coordinating. I think the Bills have an advantage against this Ravens defense. I know it's looked better since they moved Kyle Hamilton back, but there is just so much talent because the Bills could beat you with James Cook. So you don't have to worry about Kyle Hamilton sitting back there and picking off passes because they may move him up to stop James Cook. And that's when you can hit, Shakir, or when you can go to Cooper over the top, or Coleman. You've got some receivers, some options for Josh Allen who could really hit you. But then again, they got to deal with Lamar and Derrick Henry on the ground. If they get Zay Flowers for this, of course, you have that threat there as well. And of course, you always got Likely and Andrews hanging around there too. But it's going to be, I think this is the most explosive game this weekend.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be, there's a reason it's in that primetime spot, the last game of the weekend. And man, they're going to hit hard for sure.
So you got the Bills and you said you picked who you want to win. I picked who I think is going to win because if the Texans win, it would be just our luck. We get matched up with the damn Ravens again in the AFC Championship. And I'm really hoping we can at least get revenge for the Christmas. But I mean, that would be our luck. We give everything we have against the Chiefs, and oh man, here come the Ravens. So, but I mean, this is a pick 'em. I almost had to flip a coin for this one. So
yeah,
that's it. Well, that sets the stage for the divisional round, guys. Again, thank y'all for hanging out with us tonight. Again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We've gotten some viewers tonight, so thank you guys. And of course, go check out our sponsor, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock for all your laptop, cell phone, gaming console, gaming PC needs. Go check it out. Gabe will get you hooked up. If you need it repaired, they'll get it taken care of for you too. It's time for the extra picks. We do this via Prize Picks, guys. They've had some free picks going on. Check them out. There might be some promos you can get on. If you saw the clip that went out this week, heard what happened to me in this last week. I was 4 yards short, 4 Terry McLaurin yards short against the Dallas Cowboys from winning $500 on a free bet. And then there was a $10 free bet that I had last week that I needed 3 out of 5 to hit, and that didn't happen either. Oh no, 4 out of 5. I'm sorry, 4 out of 5 to hit. That didn't happen either. So that's my luck. But you guys could try your own luck with Prize Picks. All you got to do is pick more or less. Like Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to say he's under 250.5 passing yards.
Yeah, again, if this Houston defense, shows up like they did, I think that's a solid number for sure.
Yeah, and again, the Texans against sixth against, in total defense. If I'm looking at their passing yards per game, they were only allowing 201 passing yards per game. So that's well under that. That's under that number that Patrick Mahomes is set at. But again, it is Patrick Mahomes, so you never know. But I'm going under 250 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes. I know Knuckles is coming back, but you can't rule out Sonic. I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs over 84.5 rushing yards in this game.
I mean, I think the way they've kind of leaned on him, the last couple of games, that we're definitely going to see a lot of that. I think they're going to be scary either way, but yeah, I think they're going to hand the ball off to Gibbs a lot to keep those downs going.
I know he was reading a book on the sideline last week, but that doesn't, it's not what I think people are making it out to be. I think AJ Brown bounces back this week over 69.5 receiving yards.
Sometimes you just got to get yourself in a great headspace, and that's what I think what he was trying to do. Trying to, zen out a little bit, get right, and if the Eagles, take off like people are expecting them to, that's a very easy number for AJ Brown.
Inner peace in a time of war, my friend. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. Again, thank you to our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys. We'll try to have the audio version of the show up tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon, if I'm being honest. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Andy, are you ready for divisional weekend?
Oh man, I'm so pumped for divisional weekend. I think it's going to be great 4 games, and again, we'll see who survives some of these games to make it to the conference championships.
I think I'm ready. I might be ready. Hold me after this weekend's over. Who knows?
Hold you, no matter which way.
Or you might be hearing me yell from across town. So who knows? But that'll do it for us, guys. Enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy divisional weekend. And until then, goodbye and good night.